All right, so today at NBC Sports Bay Area.com, I wrote about some of the options for the 49ers if they're going to be looking at offensive linemen at number 11. I really don't think there are very many options available there. Kind of the one guy I pinpointed was Kelvin Banks from Texas. Uh, Good size, uh, good agility, good athleticism. He talked at the NFL Scouting Combine about having a formal interview with the 49ers. And then when he was asked specifically about the Miami Dolphins, his answer was that he basically ran the same scheme at Texas that the Dolphins run. Well, why is that relevant to the 49ers? Of course, Mike McDaniel runs that offense, and the Dolphins offense very similar to the 49ers offense, especially with the running game. So he's one guy that I kind of pinpointed. The other two, I think will be gone by when the 49ers selected number 11 overall would be Armand Membu from Missouri and Will Campbell from LSU. So those are the three guys that I think the 49ers would have to strongly consider at number 11. That's, of course, not to say that it's going to be an offensive lineman there, but I think if you take an offensive tackle at number 11, you're expecting him to be a starter day one. And that's the only surefire way that you'll have a starter that you draft at the tackle positions. And I think for the 49ers, they have to start looking at the offensive tackle position. They had a backup in Jalen Moore, who another team, the Kansas City Chiefs, evaluated as a starting left tackle. That's why they signed him to a 2-year, $30 million contract. That's why they've assigned him to protect the blind side of Patrick Mahomes. But you take an offensive tackle at number 11, you're going to force feed it. You're going to make sure that he's a starter at a tackle position. I think once you get beyond round one, when you're talking about a tackle, there are no guarantees. Now, there might be starting tackles out there, but I don't think that you can just say, hey, we have this guy evaluated as a day one starter, whether it's left tackle, where Trent Williams, his time is coming to an end at some point, you would think. And then the other tackle position where there could be a need is at right tackle with Colton McKivitz. He's entering the final year of his contract. So one of the things, the other offensive lineman, by the way, that I noted in that story was Josh Simmons. He went through his pro day, not really pro day, at Ohio State. All he did was lift because he has that patellar injury that he's coming back from. Boy, I just think so risky there. He did say that he expects to be ready to do a full pro day in mid-April at Ohio State. So we'll see if he's able to do that. And that would certainly impact his draft status if he's able to go through that. I just think too early for the 49ers to even consider him at number 11 with that injury. And it's an injury that's not like an Achilles, it's not like an ACL. The rate of returning to your old form coming off a patellar is it's not as good. There's a lot of would be a lot of risk involved with selecting a guy number 11, especially with the 49ers who have had a history of Weston Richburg and Mike McGlinchey and now Drake Jackson who've had those kinds of injuries, and it's just way too risky, I think. When the 49ers look at their offensive linemen, they do look at some very specific things. And now I'm going to talk about kind of the measurables, but this isn't to say that the 49ers just look at the numbers and they go, well, we'll take him and because of that time and we'll take him. They're clearly, they watch the film. They get to know the person. Chris Furster is the 49ers offensive line coach. He conducts a lot of Zoom meetings. The scouts get to know these guys, so they know a lot of what makes them tick. And they watch the film to see if the playing style matches with some of those measurables. But there are some specific measurables that the 49ers appear to hold in very high regard as it pertains to their system. And so it's not the 40 time per se, but it is the 10-yard split off the 40 time. It's the 20-yard shuttle and it's the three cone drill. So the 49ers ask a lot of their offensive linemen to be able to get out in space, hit a moving target, to pull, to do, to get to the second level, to get to the third level. And so they require their offensive linemen to have a lot of athleticism. And when you look at Dominic Pooney, he didn't run a great 40 time, which is fine. Nobody really cares about an offensive lineman run the 40 time, but he did have a very good three cone drill and he had a very good 20-yard shuttle. So with that in mind, I thought I'd take a look at some of the offensive linemen, not the guys that I mentioned, probably a lot of these guys that you don't know too much about. None of these guys are going to be talked about in the first round. And that honestly is probably where the 49ers, I shouldn't say honestly, my opinion would be where the 49ers would start to look at offensive linemen, probably deeper into the draft. Maybe not even the second round, maybe the third round and beyond. Remember, they do have 8 picks in the top 160, so there's an opportunity for them to add some of these guys. Okay, so the first thing would be the I'll try to match this up. Let's go with the 10-yard split on the 40 time. And one guy that kind of stands out, and he's a guard from Georgia, Tate Ratledge. And he has a really good 10-yard split. He has a really good three cone drill. And this is a guy that could be taken in the third round, third or fourth round, late second, whatever the case may be. He's someone to keep an eye on, maybe kind of in that Dominic Pooney range, not necessarily a guy like Pooney who had 5 position flexibility, but Tate Ratledge, keep an eye on him from Georgia. Another guy who played tackle in college and probably projects more to the guard position in the NFL is from Arizona, and I'll try to get his name right. I'll try to breeze through it and kind of say it with a lot of confidence. His name is Jonah Savaiinaea. Is that right? Let me try it again. Jonah Savaiinaea. There we go. Jonah Savaiinaea. He's a guy that has a very good 10-yard split. I don't, I'm not sure what his times were in those other disciplines that I talked about, but Joa Savaiinaea is somebody that could be in that second or third round along with Ratledge. Uh, there's an offensive tackle who is a big guy, 6'7" and 5/8 from Boston College. He was at the Senior Bowl, and that's Ozzy Trapilo. Good size, good 10-yard split. We'd be looking at probably maybe using one of those fourth round picks on him, potentially third, but in that range as well. Not a first day pick for sure, and then somewhere late in day two potentially. So Ozzy Trapilo is somebody that the 49ers, could look to take a flyer on at an offensive tackle position, someone that, wouldn't probably step in and be a starter from day one, but somebody that they could spend a little bit of time on and develop into that role. As far as the three cone drills, let's go with one guy at the center position that stands out to me, and that's Drew Kendall, again from Boston College. Um, good good three cone drill time, and somebody who should be available fourth round, something like that. Um, Here's an offensive tackle, and this guy might be much later in the draft, but somebody who checks the box and comes from a small school, Alabama A&M. That's Carson Vinson. Really good three cone drill. Don't know much about the film, but what I was seeing was that probably a seventh round pick, sixth, seventh round pick, maybe even a priority free agent. And then there's a guard, Caleb Rogers from Texas Tech, uh, fifth, sixth round, something like that, a D3 guy that the 49ers could look at based on the athleticism of being able to stop, put your foot in the ground, change direction, target a linebacker or a defensive back. So all those skills, which are those drills, I know the 40 time gets a lot of pub, a lot of run, but for the 49ers, just their track record seems to be that they pay a lot more attention to the 10-yard split, the 20-yard shuttle, and the um, the three cone drill. Another guy that in the 20-yard shuttle was very good. Rogers and Kendall were good in that. Caleb Rogers from Texas Tech and Drew Kendall from Boston College. Another guy to keep an eye on would be an offensive tackle, Logan Brown from Kansas. So, those are very much under the radar guys, but something to keep an eye on. When you look at the combine testing or the pro day testing, don't look so much when we're talking about offensive linemen, don't look so much at the 40 time. Look at the change of directions, the short area athleticism, because that's something that the 49ers, at least their history has been, that they pay a lot of attention to that as well. So if that matches up and you like a guy and you think, oh, I think the 49ers this is a guy the 49ers should go after, look at those three drills, and that might give you an idea whether the 49ers could be on him or not. Thanks for watching this video. Check out my stories, because I did write about Kelvin Banks as well as the four that they could potentially take at 11, the four offensive linemen. That's what this is all about, offensive linemen, nothing else. We'll hit some other position groups, but thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Tell me what you think in the comments section. Are there some guys that fit those criteria that I just mentioned? And that is it for now.